Hello. Pastor Leo Cunningham, coming to you from the main sanctuary of Glenwood United Methodist Church, located on the west side of Columbus, Ohio. And just wanted to touch bases with you about some of the audio situations we've been having here in the building. I'm the only one here filming, and so I want to make sure it's watching multiple things happen at the same time. Okay, so want to give you just a brief rundown of some of the things that are happening with regards to sanctuary sound. The one I want to address first are the conversations maybe you've heard about the mics, the panels, and the board. So, you've got multiple mic inputs. Let's call these MI. So, all over the front of the church, you've got front of the sanctuary by the altar areas, you've got multiple mic inputs. We've got them in the choir loft. We've got them on the organ. We have them on the piano. We have them lots of places. So every one of the mic imports that we even have them actually in the back of the sanctuary as well, because the bell choir used to be here in the back of the sanctuary. And so there are actually mic lines in the back. So all of these have to go into, there's this little room behind the pulpit. Slide this over so you can see. So, if this is the pulpit where I'm preaching from, there's actually a little room back here where everything goes, where all of these cables go into. They connect into, some people call it a patch box, some people call it a switch. And then all of these wires run underneath the floor of the sanctuary into the sound booth. So you can, into the sound booth. Where we have the mixer. Now, your sound mixer has so many channels. They're like physical slides that can go up and down. Matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to grab one of the old mixers that died. So during COVID, we had a mixer die. Now, there's debate about why we haven't gotten rid of this mixer. That's another sermon for another time. But every one of these is a channel that can handle a mic line input. Now, as you can see, there are lots of them on here because whenever this board was purchased prior to my arrival, they got a board that was pretty big. It could handle quite a few mic inputs. In fact, it can technically hold 32. Where did I put the marker? All right. So the old soundboard had 32 inputs. That soundboard died. The current soundboard that we have holds 20 inputs. Because it's just me here filming. So if the old board held 32 inputs. The new board holds 20 inputs. That means what? We have lost 12 inputs. Now, we weren't running all 32, but we were running more than 20. This is why we can't hook up the choir loft. That and the fact that, 6 feet apart. But at some point, people are going to be vaccinated. People are going to be able to come back, and we're going to try to bring back the choir. Not anytime soon, because people are still getting that 2-week cycle. But also, we can't actually mic the choir like we need to. We can't mic the bell choir like we need to. Why? We don't have enough inputs. So there are more things trying to go in than we could actually handle. This is why there have been conversations about upgrading the system in the sanctuary. All of our equipment that is audio is analog. Remember a few years ago, maybe longer, when everyone switched from analog TVs to digital, and they told you had to buy the conversion equipment to switch everything over to digital? Digital sounds better. It is more reliable. It is easier to control. It is easier to manage. But right now, we couldn't do what we were doing before because we don't have a big enough soundboard to handle it. This is what we're talking about one of the things with regards to trying to get a new soundboard, a digital soundboard, something that's going to have more inputs, something that is going to be more reliable than the analog system. Now, one other thing I want to touch on before I have to go is, and hopefully that was just the simplest explanation I could give you with regards to the soundboard upgrade. A digital board can be programmed. A digital board things can be set, and they can be changed much easier than trying to do it off of an analog board. We've got 3 sets of sound levels we have to manage in the sound booth. We have the monitors for the musicians. They have to be able to hear what they sound like. And, it gets a little complicated sometimes with being able to regulate all of the monitor sounds. So that is one volume control that has to be handled in the sound booth. We're going to call this volume 1. Volume number 2 that has to be managed in the sound booth is what we're going to call the live feed, also known as the online. Say live feed. I used to work in radio a long time ago. This is what you're hearing when you are watching at home, or on your your mobile devices, your computers. You're watching on your cell phones. You're watching, on your tablets. You're watching on your tablets. It's a pretty big cell phone. That is a different volume level. We're going to call this volume number 2. Then you have what you hear inside the house. These are the house speakers. We're going to call this volume 3. This is what's happening inside the sanctuary. I'm going to put the Greek symbol for Christ here. So whoever is working the soundboard, whether it's me, whether other people learn how to work the soundboard, whether it's a digital one or an analog one, you still have to regulate for 3 levels of sound. You've got to have the headphones on and have to switch between the 3 levels of sound. You have to switch between the monitor, the live feed, and the house speakers. Monitors we set during practice, so that one you don't have to watch for. But the live feed and the house speakers, that one gets a little tricky sometimes. Especially if you have a situation like we had this past week where there was an audio problem, but we had no way to relay that to the people in the sound booth in a way that they could hear it. Now, some Sundays I'm in the sound booth, but my phone is on silent. So I didn't know that people were having audio line issues because my phone's on silent. I'm not seeing those things. And when I take my phone up front to use for the podcast, I'm not checking my messages to see, hey, did somebody text me during service? I'm not doing that. So I don't see those things. So we're trying to figure out how to have a way to relay this information back to either the sound booth or someone else who's a part of the worship team. So these are the things that that are kind of happening inside of the sound booth. Now I'll give you one more. Here's a third thing going on with how worship goes down here. So during COVID, we ran a skeleton crew. There were 6, maybe 7 of us in here every Sunday. So we end up with one person doing the videos. So Rebecca is all the cool graphics you see and all the images, that's all Rebecca. That's what Rebecca does. That's her unpaid servant ministry to the church, because it's church, you don't volunteer here. You have paid and unpaid ministry people. So Rebecca is working the video. So she's got the computer, and everything you're seeing at home, she's making sure you can see. She's also in charge of making sure that you can see the online. She's also responsible for the screen here in the sanctuary. Now, here's where it gets even more involved. Rebecca is also on the praise team. This is why when you hear her sing, you can't see her up front, because she's in the back hitting buttons and singing at the same time. Now, what becomes even trickier with that is we used to refer to these as Britney Spears mics, but we probably should find a better name for them, over-the-ear microphones. Her mic, being back here, I'm in the back of the sanctuary, picks up the speakers coming back towards everyone in the sanctuary. So her mic that's why sometimes there's this weird sound happening, because she's not up front singing with everybody else. She's back here. So her mic is picking up all types of stuff. And we're trying to figure out ways to regulate that with frequency so it doesn't pick up as much, but it's going to pick up, especially if the house volume has to be up. Her mic's going to pick that up. All of this is happening, and she's never worked a soundboard before. So if something happens, she's not quite ready to dive into the soundboard piece, especially because one is analog. Now, if it was digital and something were to happen, could literally take a tablet and adjust it from anywhere in the building. I could adjust it. Someone up front could adjust it, part of the worship team. It could be done but not from there. But this is a lot going on. But this is also a lot going on because also what has to happen is remember before we talked about, just briefly, about the soundboard? So the soundboard is an analog system. We actually have to run it into a machine that converts this signal digital. So then this can take it into the computer so it can actually go online. Analog, extra piece of equipment we had to buy a year ago to go online. Digital board, this piece goes away. And mind you, this is just talking about upgrading the audio system. We haven't even gotten into discussing upgrading the video system. Because you remember how there used to be 3 cameras here? And you could get 3 different camera angles? And there was the little joystick toggle we had back in the sound booth? That we can see everything from those different cameras, and you could get close-ups of the choir and close-ups during the children's message. Can't quite do that right now. Why? There's only 1 camera. It's not connected to anything. It's mobile, but it's digital, and that's the advantage, because the 3 cameras we currently have here are all analog. We tried to run an analog signal that first Sunday we were online. It was so bad, we were able to cut the feed and switch it to digital, and it was like night and day. But that's why you're not seeing those 3 set camera views anymore. And that's why when we have to have a transition from the wide shot to the tight shot of the pulpit, we've got to wait for Rebecca, because she has to physically move the camera and zoom it in. As opposed to if she had 3 cameras like in the old system, you could set camera 3 already on the pulpit, hit a button, it would switch over. This is why we're talking about upgrading the video system. We're talking about just upgrading the whole thing. That way, there is a better worship experience. If it's bad audio, nobody will watch it. We learned that most of the people learned that. I already knew that from working in radio. People will put up with bad video before they will put up with bad audio. Bad audio, they will tune out. And this is something they taught us in undergrad. It bared true this past Sunday. So this is another sermon for another time about the sanctuary sound. I'd rather do it here than do it on a Sunday morning and take up sermon time, and that's another sermon for another time. But if we can switch out from an all analog system to an all digital system for sound and video, the experience will be better for people who are shopping for churches by checking your church's online presence. They're checking the website, they're checking the Facebook, they're checking the Instagram, they're checking the YouTube to see what kind of church this is, what kind of church we are. And so, first of all, we want to make sure we've got good audio for worship, because it's about the praising of God, not what we like to hear. It's about what we think is we're giving thanks to God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. But if there are problems with that, it becomes a distraction, and it doesn't help. Now, God will show mercy and grace. God's happy with all types of musical styles, different languages for thousands of years. But we want to make sure it's a good worship experience for everybody who is in the building and everybody who is not in the building. It's a both and, not an either or. Improving the soundboard will help everyone who is sitting in this sanctuary, which already has great acoustics. Enhancing the soundboard, I already showed you the math. We can't hook up what we used to have with the board we currently have. It's like throwing in, what my parents used to say, it's like trying to put 5 pounds of flour in a 1 pound bag. It can't be done. But we want to be able to do it again. And this is just a personal thing for me. I would rather be trying to put 5 pounds of sugar in a 10 pound bag, because I believe that God is going to bless us with enough people and experiences and ministry that we're going to need room for that. I don't see lack, I see opportunity. I don't see a church half full. I don't see a church half empty. I see a church that has plenty of space. I don't see lack, I see abundance, I see opportunity. And I think we can get there. We've gotten this far by faith, and God will continue to get us through it. So that's what I have for you. Hopefully all this is working. If it is, this will go public. If not, no one will see it. Pastor Leo Cunningham, coming to you from the main sanctuary of Glenwood United Methodist Church. Like, subscribe, share. God's grace, God's peace, and God's love be with us all. Coming to you from Columbus, Ohio in 2021. I'll see you Sunday. Or sooner. Get the digital devotions back up and running. Okay? This Sunday, last Sunday on the message series on, and Lord knows we all need a little grace. We all need to share a little grace. We'll talk about that in a few days.